Hi, my name is Barry Doyle. I'm a lawyer in Chicago. We're going to be talking today about when you should hire a lawyer. You don't have to hire a lawyer for a workers' compensation case. And we're going to talk about three basic questions you should be asking and seven circumstances in particular where it really would make sense for you to hire a workers' compensation lawyer. Hit like, hit share, so that this information gets out and is circulated to people who are in your network. It's important information for truck drivers to have so that they can protect their rights to workers' compensation benefits after an on-the-job accident, including the disability benefits that you're entitled to and access to quality medical care, which is an important thing after an on-the-job injury to make sure that you can get back to doing the things that you like to do and get back to work and keep making a living and paying the bills for your family. Basically, what we're going to be talking about are the three basic questions you should be asking, and then seven circumstances in particular where you should hire lawyers. You don't have to. The fact of the matter is that no, you don't have to hire a lawyer to help you with a workers' compensation case. If you're a grown man, grown woman, you have a right to make your own decisions about how you're going to handle your affairs in life, including making bad decisions. I don't know anything about doing plumbing or electrical work. If I wanted to, I could go on the internet and look up how to fix the electricity in my house. But the odds are that things wouldn't come out so well and I'd probably burn my house down. By the same token, if you have an on-the-job injury, you do have the right to handle your own workers' compensation case and try to make sure that you get the benefits that you're entitled to. But if you don't know the environment you're dealing with and you don't know what your rights are and how to assert them, you could effectively burn your house down in terms of your workers' compensation case. I'm a big believer in you got to know what you don't know what you know and know what you don't know. And I don't know anything about fixing the electricity in my house and wouldn't dare presume to do that. If I did, hey, I'm a grown man. I can make bad decisions about how to handle my affairs, and you're entitled to do the same thing. So the real question is, should you hire a lawyer? Do you have the kind of case where it makes sense? And there's three basic questions that I'd suggest that you think about when you're trying to make a decision about whether you should hire a workers' compensation lawyer or not. First question, do you know what your rights are under the Workers' Compensation Act? Do you know what your employer's rights are under the Workers' Compensation Act? When you get hurt on the job, what's going to happen is the claim will be turned over to your employer's insurance company, and they have a team of people, whether it's the adjuster or the lawyers who work for the insurance company, who know the Workers' Compensation Act backwards and forwards. They know what your rights are, they know what the employer's rights are, and they know how to push the buttons and move the levers, make things happen in favor of the employer. Do you have that same kind of information? If the answer is no, that's a time where you should start thinking about hiring a workers' compensation lawyer. Question number two, do you understand the medical issues that are involved in your particular injury or accident? The medical part of handling a workers' compensation case is complex, and the insurance companies are going to have access to nurses and doctors and experienced lawyers who understand what's in a medical record and how to go about questioning doctors to get the right kind of information that's going to help their position and not yours. So do you have a good handle on the medical issues that are involved? Not just knowing what's going on with you, but the really technical parts about what's in your medical record. What are the tiny little findings on your MRI? Question number three, do you know how to advance your case through the workers' compensation system from a technical and procedural standpoint? There are rules to every game that gets played, and I don't want to say that the workers' compensation system is a game. I'm not trying to say that, but there are a set of rules as to how cases get moved through the system. If you don't understand what those rules are and how to move your case through the system the way it should be, you could be standing right on top of a trapdoor and just the other lawyers could be waiting for until the last minute to spring the trapdoor out from underneath you, and you're going to be in deep weeds. So those are the three questions that I've got for you. If you're considering whether or not you should hire a workers' compensation lawyer, you don't have to. If you're a grown man or grown woman, you get to make your own decisions, and you can make bad ones if you choose. But if you're going to think about this in a smart kind of way, you should try to answer these three questions. Do I know what my rights are and what my employer's rights are under the Workers' Compensation Act? Do I understand what the medical issues are in my case? And the last one is do I know how to move my case through the system consistent with the rules and procedures that are in place for resolving workers' compensation cases? If you can do all three of those things, then it may make sense for you to not hire a workers' compensation lawyer. But if you can't say answer all those things in a positive kind of way, saying I can handle these things, then perhaps it's time where you should hire a workers' compensation lawyer. So those are the three basic questions, but there are 7 particular circumstances where I would recommend to people that they actually should hire a workers' compensation lawyer. The first is if any part of their case is being disputed, whether something is covered by the Workers' Compensation Act, the amount of money that you're entitled to in terms of your benefits, in terms of the nature and extent of your injuries. If that's really being disputed, there are real stakes for how those disputes get resolved, and potentially you're either leaving a lot of money on the table, or you're putting yourself in a position where you're not going to have access to quality medical care. Second set of circumstances where you should hire a workers' compensation lawyer is if you're an owner-operator. The law in Illinois is that people who are owner-operators are at least potentially covered by workers' compensation, even though they've signed I'm using the finger quotes, an independent contractor agreement. Essentially what happens is that the workers' compensation law in Illinois looks at the substance of the work that's being done and tries to assess, is this really an employer-employee relationship, even though they're putting a label on it that says independent contractor. And the fact of the matter is that the amount of control that trucking companies exercise over owner-operators is such that there would probably be a finding that, yes, they are entitled to workers' compensation benefits. And the fact of the matter is that that's thousands of dollars and access to quality medical care that's being left behind by people who are owner-operators who buy into the idea that they are independent contractors and therefore not covered by workers' compensation. Third set of circumstances where I recommend that you should hire a lawyer is if there's a third-party liability case involved. Essentially what third-party liability case is if there is somebody else who's to blame for your accident other than your employer, a coworker, or yourself, you have an option of filing a civil lawsuit. And it kind of runs on a parallel track to your workers' compensation case, but there's a significant amount of interplay between the two items, and it's complex. It's certainly the kind of complex legal issue that I would always recommend to somebody that they should get the help of a lawyer, because not understanding how the two things relate can really cost you a lot of money when everything's all said and done. The fourth set of circumstances where I'd recommend that you should hire a workers' compensation lawyer is if there's a repetitive trauma injury involved. Most commonly we're talking about things like carpal tunnel, we're talking about low back injuries, some knee and shoulder injuries, trigger finger injuries, things like that, which essentially are caused by basically the breakdown of the body due to sort of the micro traumas that you sustain day in and day out doing the kind of work that you do. Sometimes those are very difficult cases to establish from a causation standpoint, showing that the condition that's at issue was caused by the employment. With that kind of a difficult causation issue, that's the kind of thing where you should hire a workers' compensation lawyer. Fifth set of circumstances I recommend where you should hire a workers' compensation lawyer is if there aren't settlement negotiations being initiated by the insurance company after you have returned to full duty at work. You get 3 basic benefits in a workers' compensation case. You get 2/3 your average weekly wage while you're off. You get payment of your medical expenses, and then there is a payment for permanency that's associated with the injury. And when people talk about getting their workers' comp case settled, that's what they're talking about. This is the big check that they get at the end of the case. What will happen a lot is that insurance companies will go ahead and they will pay your basic benefits. They'll pay for your 2/3 your average weekly wage while you're off. They'll pay for your medical expenses, but then not say anything about the settlement at the end of the case. And basically what they're waiting for to have happen is for the statute of limitations to run out and for it to be too late to get that settlement that you're entitled to. Sixth set of circumstances is if there's a Medicare set-aside involved. And it's a long discussion about what a Medicare set-aside is, but sort of the short version is that if you are Medicare eligible and you require ongoing care, that is supposed to be taken care of as part of the settlement of your workers' compensation case. It's a complex, difficult issue to deal with. Essentially, if it's not handled properly, you put yourself at risk of not only not getting the medical care that you need, but losing some of your basic Medicare benefits, and that obviously has significant long-term consequences for you. Final set of circumstances where I'd say you should get a workers' compensation lawyer is if there are serious injuries involved. And the reason for that is that essentially at this point, you really are playing for significant stakes. You really put yourself at risk of essentially leaving a lot of money on the table. And it's something that I don't recommend for anyone. So to recap, 3 basic questions you should be asking to help you answer: should I hire a workers' compensation lawyer? Do I understand what my rights are under the Workers' Compensation Act? Do I understand the medical issues that are involved? And the third one is do I know procedurally how to advance my case through the workers' compensation system? 7 basic circumstances where you should hire a workers' compensation lawyer. First is if any part of your case is disputed. Second one, if you're an owner-operator. Third one is if there's a third-party liability case involved, there's somebody else to blame for your accident or injury other than your employer, a coworker, or yourself. Fourth one, if there's a repetitive trauma injury involved. Fifth one is if there are no settlement negotiations being initiated by the insurance company after you've been returned to full duty at work. Sixth one is if there's a Medicare set-aside involved. And the final one is if there's serious injuries involved. Anyway, I hope this information has been helpful. I believe knowledge is power, which is why I'm on here helping people learn what their rights are under the Workers' Compensation Act. If you think this is good information, hit like, hit share so that people in your network can be exposed to this information, hopefully make good decisions about how to handle their own situation. If you have questions, you can contact us through our website, www.rightsofinjuredtruckers.com. There's a contact form. We have a free book that's available for download. It's called Rights of Injured Truckers. And then you can also feel free to simply just call the office, and we're happy to talk to you. There's no charge for calling the office, and we'll answer whatever questions we can, the best we can with the information we've got. The number for reaching us by phone is area code 312-263-1080. And like I said, the call is free. Feel free to call us anytime. We're happy to help. That's why we're here. I hope this has been helpful. Stay safe on the road. Take care. Bye-bye.